Everyone. Welcome to One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. And good morning, Lisa. I see you're on.
Yes.
I'd like to introduce our practitioner of the day, Lisa Lazara. She's going to do our invocation, our opening prayer, and we have a quote from her too, which I love. All right. All right, Lisa.
Okay. So if we can just take a nice deep breath as we join together. It is with a joyful, thankful heart I acknowledge the perfection of this day and the power and presence of the one life that brings us together in a unity of love and understanding and desire to be in the space of evolving our souls. And knowing that today we're talking about the evolution of love, it is most joyful part of our life and is the basis of everything that we are and everything that we do, and is worthy of recognition at all times, in all places, and in all people, as we try to live namaste, seeing the love of God within each person. And so I speak my word for this gathering, knowing that it is perfect and blessed, and knowing that the words of Reverend Michelle are blessed, as are the music and the sense of togetherness that we share. And so knowing that this is so, I release my word into the law and say, and so it is.
So it is.
And so so now we do my quote, right? Do the quote. What is the evolution of love? We begin with simple affection, move to friendship and commitment, graduate into caring for our whole family, and then find our love includes compassion for other people, the whole world, and perhaps those yet to be born. Taken to an even higher level, love evolves into the joy of being, into oneness with nature, into seeing light everywhere. The mystic emerges and we realize our love is universal, alive with delight in all things. What is beyond that? A complete merging into spirit. We will never know unless we let love evolve through us. And so now if we can take the thoughts of this quote into our heart and spend just a moment in contemplating on how our own love has expanded over time. And so now perhaps you could take another deep breath and come back into our circle. And I would just like to point out that for me, I truly believe that the teachings of Ernest Holmes and our spiritual circle is a part of what has allowed my level of love to grow into greater universality and greater understanding of those with whom I might totally disagree. So I leave you with that. So back to Michelle, right?
Yes, thank you. I totally agree with what you said. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And that quote, when you sent it to me, it just filled me up. That is such
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful quote. Thank you for that. And now I have Richard. Richard's going to sing a song for us. Let's see, hang on a minute. Let me try that again. Here we go. I have to share my sound. I almost forgot. There we are. All right.
Here's a beautiful song by Michael Gott. Love can move the world. Just one life, that's all that we've been given. Just one chance to make a difference where we live. I'm just one person, and I'm only human. But only human means I've got a lot to give. Love can move the world as the moon in the sky moves the sea. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move the world to peace. It's a tide that begins with you and me. Love can move the world as the warmth of the sun moves the tree. Feel the winds of love increase as we move the world to peace. Come love the world with me. Look around, there's someone hurting near you. Look around, there must be something you can do. Look within you, find your spirit. To change the world, there's got to be a change in you. Yes, love can move the world as the moon in the sky moves the sea. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move the world to peace. It's a tide that begins with you and me. Love can move the world as the warmth of the sun moves the sea. Feel the wind of love increase as we move the world to peace. Come love the world with me. Yes, love can move the world as the moon in the sky moves the sea. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move the world to peace. It's a tide that begins with you and me. Oh, love can move the world as the warmth of the sun moves the tree. Feel the winds of love increase as we move the world to peace. Come love the world with me. Come love the world with me. Love can move the world.
Thank you so much, Richard. I really love that song, and it's true. Love can change the world. I think it's the only thing that can. So, welcome. Welcome again. Good morning again. On this beautiful first day of summer in everywhere, actually. Well, not in the Southern Hemisphere, but welcome to One Heart, One Mind, Center for Spiritual Living, and happy summer solstice. I think it's today at 8:32 p.m. Pacific time. That's the official beginning of summer and the longest day of the year for us in the Northern Hemisphere. And although someone really should have told the weather last week that summer hadn't actually started yet, because it felt like summer here in San Diego. It was really warm. We had our first 100-degree day, but summer today is officially here. And happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the biological fathers out there. And happy Father's Day to anyone who has ever fathered anyone or anything. You know, typically on Father's Day at our center, we honor the people who have fathered us or who have filled the role of father for us in our lives. But we also honor the spirit of the divine masculine. The divine masculine is one aspect of universal creative law, which we teach in the science of mind philosophy. It's the divine masculine. Hang on a second. Something flipped up on my screen and I didn't like that. The divine masculine is the cause. We think of it as the cause, the idea, the seed, the spark that lights up all of the creative process. And then the divine feminine is the receptive creative medium that brings the cause into being, into its fullness. Using that seed, soil, and plant metaphor that we use all the time in our centers. The masculine is the seed and the soil is the feminine, and the active and the receptive, coming together create the plant or the form and the experience, our world, our lives, everything we see around us and everything we experience. And it's in our oneness with this spirit, God spirit, whatever we want to call it, that we have within each of us all of these aspects. We have the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and we're constantly, even when we're unconscious of it, using creative law. You know, we're always co-creating with the divine. And in our center, in our philosophy, we learn the principles and the tools that allow us to participate, to co-create, to participate actively with this creative law to bring about the things that we'd like to see in our life. So today and always, we honor those who fathered us, and we recognize the powerful and the creative nature of the divine masculine, you know. And this seems like a fitting backdrop for today's topic, which is, as our practitioner of the day, Lisa Lazaro, said, evolutionary love. I love that title. Lisa's quote was the perfect introduction to this topic. When she sent it to me, I was like, there's only one mind. That's perfect. And as we deepen in our connection to love, you know, the love that is the essence of who we are, and as her quote said, our lives evolve into the joy of being, and into oneness with nature, I think she said, into seeing light everywhere. You know, the mystic within us emerges, and we realize our love is more than just right here in this moment, but it is universal. It spreads everywhere, and it brings us delight in all things when we see through those eyes of love, when we connect to that. I think that's so beautiful, and we all have the potential, as her quote also said, to be everyday mystics. You know, a mystic is someone who senses the divine presence everywhere, one who sees love everywhere. And we all have the potential to do that. And love is more than just mere sentimentality and cliches, or more than romantic love, although it includes that. Ernest Holmes, our founder, said my favorite line about love. He said that love is the central flame of the universe, nay, the very fire itself. I love saying that line, and it's so true. I believe the creative power of love truly is the original spark that set off the Big Bang, that set the universe on fire and created everything. Love created something out of itself. It couldn't contain itself anymore. It had to express itself through form, and it burst into creation. And that loving creative force that started everything is alive. It burns within each and every one of us too. And figuring out how to express that love in our own way, in our own lives, our own life journey, that's the purpose of our lives, and it's through our expression of love that we really come to understand ourselves and our place in the world. When we recognize and connect with and move forward from that presence of love that's within us, we experience this deep and profound love in our lives as we move through our dailiness. When we connect with it on the inside, we can't help but see it everywhere around us. It brings meaning and purpose and fulfillment and joy to our daily lives. And I've certainly had moments where I was alive with the consciousness of that essence of love, where I could really feel it. And then, of course, I've had moments when I don't, but I'm sure you have too. But I want to share one experience that I had when I was just a kid. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, my family spent a few days in the desert. We did this actually pretty often. And we'd go just outside of Palm Springs. My dad's friend had a desert cabin, and he'd let us use it from time to time. And it was in a small desert town called 29 Palms. You probably know, if you live in this area, you probably know where it is. It's still there, but we always had a great time in the desert. We'd go out and we'd catch turtles, and we'd walk in the canyons. We'd do all these great things together as a family. We spent a lot of Easters there. I found a lot of Easter eggs underneath cactus. But my favorite thing by far, my favorite experience was always that when the evening would come, my dad would go out and he'd build this huge, big old bonfire, and we'd roast hot dogs and marshmallows. And it was just such fun. Here we were out in the dark and this big glowing fire in front of us. And so my experience was that one night, I stepped back from this big bonfire and I happened to look up at the sky. And remember, this was back in the 60s when the skies were really, really clean and clear. And suddenly, and I still feel like I'm there today as I'm telling this story, suddenly I got lost in the brilliance of this night sky. It was a feeling almost like I was falling into the stars. And like I said, the memory of it is still really vivid for me today. I feel like I'm there. And it was more than just simply admiring the brilliant stars in the sky. I felt like I was totally a part of everything I saw, and I could feel it in my body. And I literally felt at one with everything. And it was in this at oneness, this at one mint that I had really never experienced before. And I was too young to articulate it at the time, but it was one of those, the Zen Buddhists call it a satori moment, where I felt like I was part of that. It was a deep, moving experience for me. It was my first mystical experience. And I've really only had maybe a handful, not even that, of those kinds of experiences again in my life. I loved it. I'd love to have some more. And I set the stage for that all the time. But here's the thing. I bet that each and every one of you that are on this call right now has had some kind of experience similar to that in your lifetime, some kind of experience when you felt this deep, overriding connection with everything, with all of life, that kind of at one-ment, and it might have been a mystical experience for you, or it might just have been this intense feeling of connection when you were, I don't know, walking in the woods or sitting on the beach. It might have been a time when you just felt such love for another life that you were just washed in this oneness and this connection. Or it might have been a moment when you were suddenly able to see someone or something in a new way, in a fresh new way, through the eyes of love. A time when you were able to feel a release of something you were hanging on to and a shift into a new experience. Someone or something that maybe you've been judging or blaming or withholding love from for whatever reason. And suddenly you were able to experience the person or the situation in a fresh new way. That shift from fear to love, which is really what that's all about. There's a line in the Course in Miracles that I love to say, and you've probably heard me say it before, that the holiest spot on earth is where an ancient hatred becomes a present love. How beautiful is that? And it's talking about that shift. I just got chills saying it. That shift from moving into a new way of being with something, to release the old idea of it and to see it through the fresh eyes and the fresh experience of love. And this is evolutionary love, which is, of course, as I said, is today's message. Evolutionary love. And evolutionary comes from the root word evolve, which comes from the Latin word, I'm probably going to botch it, I practiced it, but the Latin word evolvere, which means to unroll, to roll out, to roll forth, or to unfold. I particularly like that idea of unfolding. We unfold like the blooming of a flower to reveal the beauty that's within us, to reveal that part of us that we experience when we're in those mystical moments, those moments where we feel at one-ment. Those moments when we feel love and compassion and caring, connection, when we feel our oneness with that larger life that we're all a part of, that we live our life in. That's who we are. That's what we've come here to do, to reveal in our physical body, in and through our human experience, this love that is the essence of who we are. We're here to bring heaven to earth. So as I was preparing for today's message, I pulled out a book called Love for No Reason by Marcy Shimoff. And Marcia, I always give credit to Marcia because she turned me on to her work, and it's just fabulous. And I love reading her. And she says in her book, and I think this is true, she says that if we look around, it's pretty clear to see that most people, they don't live their lives with this overflowing abundance of love. I mean, it's pretty clear to see that, that many people feel that there's something fundamentally missing in their lives, and they're not really quite sure how to fill the void. Fortunately for us as metaphysicians, we know how to do that. But she asks these very deep and probing questions that I think help us examine if that's true for us. So she asks this, she asks, do you ever reach for food or alcohol or drugs to fill an emptiness inside? Do you ever do that? Do you ever, I'm looking at my notes as I'm doing this, get dragged down by negative thoughts, feelings, and criticisms of yourself or of those around you? Do you ever have tension and conflicts with your spouse or your children? Do you ever, I really had to think about this one. Do you ever shut down your heart or push love away? Really had to think about that. Do you ever grab onto love or try to please others to get love? Are you a people pleaser? I'm guilty of that one. I know I am. And finally, do you ever feel isolated, separate, disconnected from others? Or do you ever feel disconnected from life? So I really had to think about this. They were marvelous questions. And if I'm completely honest, and it might be the same for you, many of these I've worked through and I don't experience them that very often anymore. I've actually probably experienced all of them, but some of them I really feel like I've come a long way, and I don't really do that anymore in my spiritual expansion and my spiritual evolution. But some of these I still experience. I still find myself wanting to people please, trying to please everyone to get love. Actually, I don't even know consciously that I'm doing it for that reason, but I still find myself being a people pleaser. It's like a habit, and I've done it so often that those neural pathways are playing without me even thinking about it. And sometimes I still find myself feeling a bit isolated and separate and even disconnected from life. So much so that that's one of my major and main prayers, that I release my belief in separation. I have to remind myself that I am one with the all that is, and that in that I am empowered and humbled and exalted at the same time. It's who I am, but I have to remind myself. I have to stop and I have to look at what belief is making me so uncomfortable when I'm feeling disconnected. And I have to go within and draw up an elevated state of being. I have to remember who I am. I can use gratitude to do that. I can use love for someone else. Because I know that, as Marcy Shemroff says, all of these things that I mentioned, all of her questions have one root cause in common. And that is that we've lost touch with that unconditional love that's at the core of our being. We've lost touch with the love that is who we are. And cultivating and connecting and nurturing that infinite love is the miracle that we're looking for. And I'm using the definition of miracle here as a shift from fear into love. And that's what a miracle is. It's a natural process, moving out of fear, releasing the old, and moving into that undescribable, that ineffable presence of love that we have during those moments that I was expressing earlier. So I also ran across this poem written by Howard Thurman. If you don't know who Howard Thurman was, I'm sure you've heard the name. He was an author, a theologian, and he was a civil rights leader in the 20th century. He was born in 1899, and he made his transition in 1981. And he was a fabulous person. He was an interesting person. He encouraged Martin Luther King Jr. to merge Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance into the civil rights movement. But the poem that I found, just ran across it, expresses this idea of living a life dedicated to living from love in such a beautiful and an honest way that I'd really like to share it with you. It speaks so clearly to balancing our divine self, our divinity, with our humanity. He speaks clearly about walking that fine line of living our spiritual principles and being in the human environment, being human in our daily lives. So I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to get the screen up here. So because sometimes it's easier to hear it if you can read along. So I'm going to share my screen with you of the poem. Oops, that's not it. Let me move it a little further. Oh, we forgot to do June's affirmation. Oh, well. Did forget that, didn't we? So here's the poem by Howard Thurman. It's called I Want to Be More Loving. So let's take a nice deep breath before I read it. I want to be more loving in my heart. I want to be more loving. Often there are good and sufficient reasons for exercising what seems a clean, direct resentment. Ever feel that way? Again and again, I find it hard to hold in check the sharp retort, the biting comeback when it seems that someone has done violence to my self-respect and decent regard. How natural it seems to give as good as I get, to take nothing lying down, to announce to all and sundry in 1,000 ways that no one can run over me and get away with it. Ever feel that way? All this is part of the thicket in which my heart gets caught again and again. Deep within me, I want to be more loving in my heart, to glow with a warmth that will take the chill off a room, which I share with those whose lives touch mine in the traffic of my goings and comings. I want to be more loving. I want to be more loving in my heart. It is often easy to have the idea in mind, to plan to be more loving, to see it with the mind and give assent to the thought of being loving. This is crystal clear, but I want to be more loving in my heart. I must feel like loving. I must ease the tension in my heart that ejects the sharp barb and the stinging word. I want to be more loving in my heart, that with unconscious awareness and deliberate intent, I shall be a kind, a gracious human being. Thus, who walk the path with me may find it easier to be loving, to be gracious because of the love of God, which is increasingly expressed in my living. I want to be more loving in my heart. I think that's just beautiful. I think it's what a way to live, and it's so honest. That's what I loved about it. I could relate. It felt so real to me. I can really, really relate to that, and we can always come up for reasons why we think we should hold a grudge or nurse a resentment. But the truth is that the only person who suffers when we do that is us, because it keeps us stuck. It binds us to the person or the event in a negative way. And as Holmes so astutely said, and this is another line I say of Holmes all the time, we are bound because we are first free. And the power which appears to bind us is the only power in the universe which can free us. And that power is the evolutionary power of love. That's what we're talking about today. Do you ever find yourself lost in the thicket? Lost in the thicket? I sometimes do. And isn't it true that it's so easy to have good intentions, but the follow through is maybe where we get tripped up a little bit when we come into a situation where, we bristle for a moment. But that's why we come together in spiritual community, and that's why we support each other and learn spiritual principles and practice and develop them so that we can bring them out when we're tempted to let our humanness run the show instead of our divinity. And you know what I thought of as I was reading that poem is Howard Thurman is also the person who wrote, "Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." He wrote that his heart whispers to the all-pervading presence of God to keep fresh before him the moments of his high resolve. Don't we all do that as practitioners of this philosophy? We invite in spirit to remind us who we are, to keep fresh, that we want to live more loving lives, that we want to dig deep and find that center of love that's within us. And we want to keep fresh before us the truth of who we are and how we want to show up. We want to be centered in that divine love. So I'm going to share the closing of to kind of follow up on my talk here. I'm going to follow up to a story I shared with you a while back in one of my messages. And in that story, I confessed that I had an I exchanged words with a woman that I ran across at the park where I walk my dogs. We walk our dogs every day at Kit Carson Park. And one day I was alone. My husband is usually with me, but he wasn't with me this day. And it was just me and the two dogs. And I ran into this woman, and she had her 3 dogs. And we met on this kind of narrow path. And she was really, really annoyed with me that I wasn't moving past her as quickly as she wanted me to. And we exchanged words. And I might have called her the B word. I might have done that in the heat of the moment. And I felt really, really bad about it for days. And I was stewing over it. Oh, I should never have said that. That was not that was not appropriate. Blah, 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 blah. And then I finally ran into her again and I apologized. And I said, look, I am really sorry, no matter what was happening, which wasn't appropriate for me to call you that. And I gave my spiel and then I waited. And I waited. And I waited for her to apologize to me, but she didn't. And instead, she angrily launched into all the reasons why she had been justified in what she said. She may have thrown a couple of bombs out at me as well. And I was like, wow. And I was a little disappointed and I just walked away. So, and here's the continuation of that story. And here is the application of evolutionary love. And that's why I'm sharing the story. Every time I saw her after that, I got to feel superior. I apologized and she didn't. Look at me. I live my principles. Oh, yes, I do. I'm so awesome. And then I realized that I wasn't really living principle. I was just playing holier than thou. I wasn't really apologizing and expecting that to be enough, shifting into an acceptance of her as the essence of love that she is. And so after I had that realization, I realized that I had to correct that I really did have to move into out of that resentment and into a greater experience of love. So I started waving at her, just a little wave. Every time I went by her, I see her all the time. And then I started saying good morning to her and she started saying good morning back. Wow. And then we started talking about the weather and we started talking about her dogs. And then we started talking about my dogs. And what I did is in my mind, in my internal environment, I let go of the tug of war rope. And I just saw her as a person, a real live flesh and blood person who makes mistakes just like me. And now when I see her and her dogs coming, I'm glad to see her. And we smile at each other and we exchange words and we could just get to be present with each other. And that was a lesson for me. That's how we practiced evolutionary love. That's how we get over ourselves so that we can truly be ourselves, our divine selves. And it was a huge lesson. Now, the caveat to that is if you have someone that has abused you or physically or emotionally, I'm not saying that you have to be their best friend, but you can still practice a shift because it frees you. One of the spiritual principles that Centers for Spiritual Living uses in their education department is identified itself as the principle of heaven. When I first saw that, I thought, wow, that's interesting, heaven. But it's described like this. It's described, they describe heaven is a state of awareness of our true nature. Evolutionary love. We experience our true nature to the degree that we become conscious of it. We actively seek to know the true nature of every individual, even that lady that doesn't want to apologize to you, and to celebrate in each individual's unique expression. To experience our true nature is what we've come here to do and to be, and that is heaven. That's the principle, the state of being of heaven. And that's how I want to experience my life, in that state of being in heaven, to bring heaven to earth whenever I see an opportunity. And so I invite you, as you move through your week, this coming week, to remind yourself often by saying a simple affirmation: I am in heaven, and heaven is in me. Doesn't that feel good? Heaven is in you, and you are in heaven because that's who you are. So let's pray. I draw up into my conscious awareness the presence of the divine, the heaven that we all live in, that is the reality of being, that is where we live, move, and have our being. We are one with this presence of wonder and awe and beauty and miracles and kindness and compassion and love and generosity and prosperity and health and vitality and wholeness. We are in it. It is in us. It is all that we are. And I speak my word for and about everyone that is here on this call and everyone that is not. Everyone that is walking upon this beautiful Mother Earth and all life, that there's a shift in consciousness, in our collective consciousness of humanity and of life, that allows and accepts all of the evolutionary love that is flowing through us, because it is who we are, what we are connected to, and we move into it, releasing anything unlike it, and letting this full flow of this kind, loving generosity, and we participate with it, and we co-create our lives with it, and it becomes our experience everywhere in all areas of our life, and our vitality of health and expression of love, and in our bank accounts and our finances, so that we can do and be and give all that we want to. All of our needs are met, that our work in the world is fulfilling and joyous, and that our relationships are kind and giving and expansive. That this flow of evolutionary love in which we stand is unencumbered and continuous and moves us into a greater experience of itself. I am so grateful for this opportunity to speak these words, to be in this presence, to know the truth for myself and all. And I just give great thanks for this. And I know that this gratitude expands the expression of it even more. And I relax in this, knowing all is well. I release these words into the law of mind, knowing that they are already making their way into demonstration. They're already true. Now they're coming into form. So I relax in that. And we signify together our agreement by saying, and so it is. Nice deep breath. Thank you, guys. So good to be here in your presence. And now it's time for us to move into another spiritual practice that is conscious giving. And we know that as we give, we receive. We know that the law of circulation works so that the attitude and the atmosphere, there's the definition of heaven, I didn't share it, that we give in is the attitude that we receive. It increases the flow, and we receive what we put out. And there are many ways. If you are giving financially to this center, you can give on Venmo, you can give on Tidely, or you can send a check to our assistant treasurer, Jim Massapus, and he will put that address in the chat. And if you ever have any questions about this, you can always call or text me anytime, and I'll get right on responding to you. So I have the affirmation here. Let's pull it up. I invite you to hold your gift. If you've already given, know that you have given fully and you're receiving fully, and say the affirmation with me. I recognize that my gift is an instrument of the energy and love of God. As it flows from me, it advances and uplifts all life. Advances all life. I'm sorry, I got tongue-tied, including mine. And I give and receive joyously. I am so grateful, and so it is.
Give them the website.
I believe that Leslie, I'm going to stop my share here. There we go. Leslie, you have some announcements for us, I know?
Your newly elected Board of Trustees has had their first meeting, and you have new officers. The president of the board is Robert Brown. The vice president is Yvonne Carpenter. Rob McGregor remains as treasurer. Jean Perkle is the secretary. Relaine is a member at large, and Michelle is the ecclesiastical department. So those are your new board of trustees. I want to say congratulations and thank you for serving. Monday evening, we are going to be talking about step 11 in the metaphysical journey through the 12 steps. And the time on that is 6:30, from 6:30 to 7:30. Tuesday and Wednesday evenings take place at 6 o'clock. Tuesday is the spiritual inoculation. And what we're going to do Tuesday evening is share your demonstration. So think about a demonstration you would like to share and come and join us and share that with us so that you can let us see and experience what you've been going through in using the principles and having success with them in your life. And then Wednesday evening is the class with Reverend Michelle and Marlene Clark. And that's on principles and or spiritual principles and practices. Now, also, I want to say, use a practitioner. If you have anything in your life you're trying to demonstrate or manifest, then call a practitioner. They are listed in your newsletter that you receive every week, or you can have a session with a practitioner right now at the end of this service by going into the chat room and letting the host know that you would like to have a section with the practitioner. All right. Any other announcements?
Yes, Jim would like to make a quick announcement.
Okay.
Let's see. We are still recording this for our Facebook viewers. And so if you have any questions about the getting a link to go to the classes on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday night, please send a email to who, Leslie?
Hey,
Michelle, Reverend Michelle.
So it's REV Michelle.
generally, I check the myingalls@yahoo.com. And I also do on all of the, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I send out an email, a reminder email with the link in it. So if you're not on my list for some reason, let me know, but I think I have everyone on my list.
Okay, anything else? Okay, Relaine.
Yeah, I actually do have one thing. I would, I go on Facebook and I post our Sunday service meeting, and then we also post the talk from Sunday service. And I know that there are some of you that are not Facebook users, and I completely understand that. But if you are, if you could share the link, you could like our page, first of all, One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. And then if you think about it, please share our Facebook post on that page to your page, because then whoever looks at your page will also be invited to our Sunday service or see the recording from our Sunday service. So I invite you to do that if you feel so called. It would certainly be good for our center. And I thank you in advance.
Okay. Relaine, if you would give us the honors of doing the benediction, please.
Sure. So let's just know that there is gratitude in the energy and the air and the atmosphere of this morning from the great talk of Reverend Michelle and all of you that are here and all of us that aren't here, and just having incredible gratitude that heaven is in us and that we are in heaven. And to just feel that reverberation and just know that it is so. And so with gratitude and love, I release this, knowing that today's talk and the principles that are within us are flowing and just reverberating through us as we are present. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Elaine. Richard's going to lead us in our closing song, Face of God.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the love of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the love of God. You are the face of love. I hold you in my heart. You are my family. You are the face of God.
Thank you, Richard. Seemed like a fitting song to finish off our morning of love. Hey, so I know Jim wants to share Leslie's new car with you. You want to share Leslie's new car, Jim? You're going to have to unmute yourself and come back on. I'll let him do that. But, you know, it is Father's Day, and I know that we like to share our fathers